Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Bridget Jones's Diary, starring Renee Zellweger, Colin Firth, and Hugh Grant, directed by Sharon Maguire. Now, before I get into this review, yes, I said that this will have harsh language in the beginning because this is an R-rated series. In case if anybody that gets the wrong idea knows about it in the beginning, and I have seen this movie before, but not in theaters a long time ago when I saw it on, I want to say DVD when it first came out well, maybe not when it first came out, but anyways, I just know that I've seen the movie a long time ago and don't remember too much about this, the second or the third movie, but I am leaning it up to the new movie coming to Peacock on Valentine's Day. So let's see what this is all about. Let's get into it. A 32-year-old Bridget Jones, played by Renee Zellweger, goes to her parents' house for a New Year's party as her mother tries to set Bridget up with Mark Darcy, played by Colin Firth, the King's Speech Colin Firth, as he's recently divorced from a Japanese wife as she, as a little girl, used to run around naked by his pool. And we won't see that footage at the end of the movie when the credits roll, but I'm not going to talk about it at this point. And they have an awkward conversation while she overhears Mark and his mother saying he will never go out with anyone like Bridget. And she gets back home to London as she's depressed because she has no man to love while trying to quit drinking and smoking as her New Year's resolution, and makes a diary about who she really is while starting with to weigh herself as she's in love with her boss at work named Daniel Cleaver, played by Hugh Grant. And and I don't and I like the characters. And do I like the characters? I mean at best they're okay in my opinion. While at work, Bridget gets a phone call by her best friend Jude, played by Shirley Henderson, as she's played by an actress whom I recognized her voice and had to look her up as she's Moaning Myrtle in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets as well as Goblet of Fire. As she had a brief role in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I don't remember who she was in that film, but anyways, and gets a drink with her as well as other friends. Well, next day at work, Daniel messages Bridget about her skirt, which is so fucking inappropriate in so many levels, at a workplace, and he's her fucking boss. While days go by and they chat rather erotically, like they're doing dating of some kind, like touching her ass, for example. While Daniel's boss, Mr. Fitzherbert, who always calls Bridget Brenda, and what kind of boss doesn't know his own employees' names seems questionable to me. And Renee Zellweger did get an Oscar nomination for this performance as Bridget Jones for only this movie, and it works for this movie, and she's very charming in it, as Bridget goes to a party to introduce Mr. Fitzherbert, whom he introduces to Daniel, and at one point bumps into Mark and his colleague Natasha. And this scene is fucking awkward, but hell, this movie, and as well as the series, is all about awkward in general. Daniel flirts with Bridget, and Mark looks in jealousy. And the reason I say that is because Daniel used to be his best man at his wedding. And Mark had cheated with Daniel's fiance at the time, which led to the divorce we heard about at one point in the start of the movie. And after dinner with Bridget and Daniel, they go back to his apartment and to have sexual intercourse. And when we see the shots in London, it looks good, but it's not my favorite thing about the movie. Meanwhile, Bridget's mother leaves her father for another man who's likes her invention named Julian, and I'm starting to think this is not my favorite movie in general because I'm not into big in I'm not too big into awkward romantic comedies as they feel predictable at times. Same with regular romantic comedies. They always kind of annoy me sometimes. It's like the same movie again and again and again. Daniel takes Bridget on a holiday somewhere in the country at a wedding when Mark and Natasha happen to be there, and I thought, oh Jesus, this movie gets more and more make this movie more motherfucking awkward as it gets to a point where it's so goddamn predictable. While both Bridget and Daniel go on a canoe ride as does Mark and Natasha, and Hugh Grant has proven my point on why I don't really like him as an actor. Because he plays the same roles every time, unless if you've seen movies like Heretic, for example, where he plays like a horror villain or whatever. That was a good performance. And he comes off like a pretentious ass throughout this movie and any other romantic comedy I've seen of his. Or another example that he was fine in was the Guy Ritchie stuff I reviewed recently. And this holiday gets ruined by a meeting in the company, as I'm thinking this motherfucker is cheating on Bridget. And I can sense it from a mile away it's not funny, as Bridget dresses like a bunny rabbit to a wedding as a prostitute to her mother in Julian's wedding, as she doesn't get the memo while Daniel takes off to cheat on Bridget while her family is extremely depressed. While this is reminding me of a life crisis I don't wish to talk about, as this movie is kind of depressing me, while Mark knows what Daniel will do to Bridget, as he's no good for her, and I know why. We'll get to it later. Bridget goes to Daniel's house to check and see if there's another woman, as she hears noises a couple of times as that was the first time. The second time, she believes she's overreacting, and this is when the second time comes in. He sees another woman's jacket and sees another woman, which proves Mark's point about Daniel not being good for her, while it proves my point about Hugh Grant as an actor, as he and his lover Laura seemed pretty shallow when she describes Bridget as fat, which is a shameful act, as she gets home and watches, I believe, Fatal Attraction, which I have to confess I've never seen that movie, but I'm led to believe it is a clip from that movie. And Bridget talks with Daniel about Laura, and he's engaged to her, and this is not a funny movie, as I'm thinking, is this trying to be a romantic comedy? Because it's pretty much depressing me so far as she gets over it, with vodka, working out, throwing away everything that has to do with Daniel, and getting a new job in the television, and eventually gets the job in television at a sit-up Britain anyways, and quits her job with Daniel and tells him how much of a pig he is. And that was a good scene to tell off Hugh Grant, in my opinion. Bridget starts her new job on television and humiliates herself while sliding down a firefighter's pole while her ass was on the TV, which is so dumb, as this is going to happen throughout the series. And I'm thinking, what the fuck did I sign up for this for? As I don't remember the third movie at all, which, while I hope the fourth movie doesn't pull that kind of bullshit off, as Mark is happy about her relationship with Daniel and says how sorry he is about how she's led to believe she is an idiot while looking like it while being rude at the same time, and they have better chemistry with each other more than she and Hugh Grant do, as Colin Firth is a better actor than Hugh Grant, in my opinion, I'll say. While Bridget goes to a story she believes is exciting for her work, while she bumps into Mark as her lawyer and gives Bridget an interview of her career, and I like their chemistry at this point, as it came off a little too late into the movie, but it works for me. Bridget cooks for her birthday while her mother calls, realizing Julian is acting like a piece of shit, and Mark comes by and shows Bridget is in the newspaper and celebrate her birthday by helping her cook until her friends June celebrates and others celebrate with Mark. While they come off kind of mean to Bridget's cooking, but to be fair, she can't cook, but they toast to her as someone who can't cook anyways, while Daniel comes over and makes himself looking like an ass, as he wants her back so desperately, as Mark decides to leave on Daniel's behalf and decides to fight with Mark outside and punches Daniel in the face, and involves the entire block, as this is embarrassing for Colin Firth, as he deserves better than this. The fight ends with Mark knocking Daniel out, and Bridget defends Daniel for no good reason whatsoever, while Daniel believes they belong together, as Bridget doesn't want to go get back together with Daniel, as she moves on, and I applauded when that happened, because Daniel doesn't deserve Bridget, as it serves the motherfucker right, while Bridget comes by her father's place and her mother comes by and talks about how she wants to be back with her father, and they get back together as Bridget is happy about it. And the next day comes, and Bridget goes to Mark's family's wedding as she learns Daniel had an affair with Mark's wife. So anything Daniel said to Bridget was a lie, and I remember Daniel being the biggest douchebag in the series, as I should have guessed what he was talking about was all bullshit to begin with. So good on director Sharon Maguire for making me wildly guess that. Well, not wildly, but not guessing that. Bridget admits she likes Mark, like Mark admitted earlier in the film, saying he liked Bridget as she learns he's moving to New York and is marrying Natasha, and Bridget is upset about Mark moving to New York and marrying Natasha, while Bridget humiliates herself while explaining herself and leaves the party and goes back to London and is once again depressed while Mark gets to New York with Natasha. And Bridget gets visitors from Jude and friends as they invited her to Paris, and Mark suddenly arrives and wants to kiss Bridget goodbye as he's not going to America after all with her friend, nor is she going with her while her friends go to Paris without Bridget. And Mark reads her diary and walks out to get her a new diary, and they kiss and make up. As the climax was sort of satisfying, but how satisfied was I? Let's get to the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.6 out of 10. Renee Zellweger does deliver a wonderful performance as she's charming in it, but the movie was fucking awkward and the other characters were mediocre at best, except for Hugh Grant, proving my point on why I'm not a fan of his in general, as he comes off like a pretentious ass. And when we see the shots in London, it looks good, but it's not my favorite thing about the movie, as this is not my favorite movie in general. It can be predictable at times, and this movie is fucking depressing me while it's not that funny, in my opinion. And the scenes are good, but not great. While telling off Daniel is a good scene, but too many awkward scenes of humiliation is so dumb, and the chemistry between Bridget and Mark is better than with Daniel, in my opinion. As Colin Firth is a better actor, in my opinion, than Hugh Grant, because it works for me. This is a romantic comedy that comes off rather depressing, as this is an embarrassment for Colin Firth, as I was embarrassed for him. And people say this movie is great. I honestly can't see it. And this is a mild recommendation for this movie, as I'm not a fan of romantic comedies in general, especially the R-rated kinds, but this one did satisfy me, and at the end of the day, it was cute, and this isn't the movie I would go to every day, but it works. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I'll be back next time with Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. And until then, bye-bye.